Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Anna Devendorf. I'm the marketing manager at Traject. So welcome to our webinar, How to Start Managing Social Media Professionally. If you're joining us for more of the content and you don't know a ton about Traject Social itself, one of the things that makes us a little bit unique is we have some features that are really agency focused or focused towards people that are managing clients, like certain client approval workflows, or ways that you can toggle between different profiles and projects and things like that. So we really like to produce as much content as possible, helping those people who are specifically working on consulting, interfacing with clients, trying to become a socialpreneur, as we like to call it, and that kind of thing. So that's why we are kicking this off today. If you are kind of more in the beginning of that type of journey, starting to think that you want to start taking on your own clients, that this is something you can do on your own, and you're in the beginning of all that, the stuff that we're going to talk about today will hopefully be really helpful to you in kicking that off or continuing that. So I'm going to be leading us through a couple, discussion topics around that, but really my most important role here is that after we get through a little bit of that is facilitating, passing on your questions to these two wonderful women that are joining me here. So if you're already kind of coming into the topic, having things that you know that you want them to discuss or questions you want them to answer, you can start putting those in the question box anytime. Keep adding them throughout the webinar, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end, and we'll talk through all of those things as well. So I'm really excited to be joined by our two panelists today, because not only are they social media management experts, but they also have a lot of consulting background as well. So they're able to speak to not just the social media strategy aspect of it, but also the kind of behind the scenes processes that maybe a little bit of a black box if you're still just starting out and really only know about the social media management skills part of it and want to get more acquainted with the background of it. So they know all about that stuff as well. And I will let them introduce themselves and kind of talk about who they are, what types of things in the social media management world they're usually up to. And I'll pass it off to Emer first to give us a little background.
Oh, hi, Anna. Thank you very much. And Andrea, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I live in Ireland, which is quite a few miles from America. I am a social media consultant and trainer. My business is called FIT Social Media. I deal with businesses of all kinds. I consult, train and manage, and I'm delighted to be here to answer any questions that you might have, and hopefully encourage people to take the leap and try something that they maybe have thought about, maybe working with social media, and hopefully they enjoy their journey.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Andrea, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Hello. So my name is Andrea Jones. I'm a social media strategist, host of the Savvy Social podcast, and I have a micro agency that does social media management for our clients. Our best clients are online business owners, usually impact leaders, so like coaches and that sort of thing, authors, speakers. But then I also teach social media as well, and teach other people how to start social media businesses. Usually they like how to grow outside of just freelancing by yourself and kind of expand your business into working with multiple clients and managing it all. And so what I really like about kind of my approach or what I do with social media is not to have it be overwhelming, hence the team to support, because sometimes if we're a solo business, we're doing all of the things, but then also managing your own social media, like not having to be distracted by all of the notifications and keeping everything in one spot and keeping it clean and tidy and organized.
Perfect, I love it. I'll let you kind of keep going, because one thing I'm really curious about to kick us off you know, kind of in the realm of all that background, is just if you guys would put yourself in the shoes a little bit of all the people we have attending who, you know, are maybe kicking this journey off, and bring us back to when you kicked this journey off, like what kind of, I want to call your origin stories. If you know, I'm talking about you guys like your Marvel superheroes, whatever. We're doing a prequel movie of Andrea and Emer, but you know, like that moment where you kind of first thought that this was something that you can do, and kind of how you came to that decision, and how you knew it was the right path for you, and that you kind of had all the tools you need, and it was the right time professionally where you were ready and you were able to do it.
Well, for me, I used to be in marketing roles previous before I have three little angels. They got bigger and bolder and went to school, and I then didn't want to be sitting at home looking at myself, so to speak. So I thought I'd upskill on the way techniques had changed. And I found things definitely had changed, and you know, digital and marketing, websites, everything had taken over from what was previous, which was more outbound marketing, and it was more inbound marketing now. So anyway, I started off with websites and website development, and then I moved from there into social media. I found that much more interesting. And cause I'm a very social person. I love working with people. I love chatting and finding out new things. So being really stuck behind a screen doing websites was fine, but I felt that I liked more social interaction. And so, as I say, I went off and I did a few courses, and then of course you learn things on the job as well. And I got involved with some charities, and I moved up from there. So it's been ever evolving. Every day is a school day, and nobody knows everything. And as you know, you can see social media is changing every day. So it's exciting to be in this sphere and working with some really interesting people.
Awesome.
So my story is a little different in that I didn't consider myself a business owner. I thought I would go work at an agency or work in social media within a company. At the time, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I was working for Marriott Hotels. And I met my husband online, who we met on YouTube actually, which, you know, I was already playing around on social media just personally. But we did a video collab, and then we just kept talking, and so I ended up moving to Canada, a whole other country, to be with him. And so that move is what was the catalyst for starting my business, because I had to do something, and I wasn't technically allowed to work in Canada yet. So I was like running my business from my mom's address back home. And that's really how it all started. Just freelancing, doing all of the things at first. I have a degree in English literature, so I did a lot of blogging and writing at first. But I really liked social media and was quite confused at first at what, I like learning about it. And my best clients just don't want to figure it out. They don't want to learn it. And so I love that Emer, you said it's going to school every day, because it is that. Like, there's no, it's hard to be like an expert. Even Facebook now looks totally different. All of those things. Instagram has Reels, so it's really approaching it from that desire and in that curious place. And yeah, that's how the business started. Was just out of necessity, because I needed to do something while I was figuring out my status, and now I'm a dual citizen now, so it's all good.
That's incredible. I love that story. That's got to be the best case scenario when people say, you know, meeting online is YouTube collabing. That's so great. So, Emer, you actually touched on so many little things that I want to dig into a little bit more, because you really mentioned both the soft skills and some hard skills that you kind of picked up in your your journey as you were going. So I know you mentioned that part of your motivation was, you know, you love being really social and you love chatting with people and things like that. I'm curious to know from both of your opinions if you kind of feel like that is a prerequisite for kind of starting down this path, or if you would disagree with that statement. And you know, for any of the people out there who may not be, you know, totally comfortable with that whole client interfacing, you know, really building out that network aspect of it, like what they can do to kind of you know, build that up or compensate for that, and the other soft skills that you.
I was gonna. I have a little trick that kind of will break the ice. Is if you have somebody contact you and they want to know what you can do for them, you say, "Well, I'm going to send you over an exploration document." So I would advise anybody to use like Google Forms. You know, create your questionnaire in Google Forms and your prospect and see how I provide to you ahead of the real conversation. Send the information, you then get some feedback, you can have that conversation, and they then might have a thought process to exactly what they want by the question you provide them, you know. Because I think that way that the client's expectations might change, and they might actually start to realize that it is going to be of value to them working with you because you have asked maybe the right questions rather than spend 30 minutes on the phone where you could maybe have it all organized and, you know, ready within 20 minutes of a conversation. Because at the end of the day, your time is just as valuable as theirs, you know. So for them then to feel that you understand them because you've asked the right questions, can make them more enthusiastic maybe to work with you and realize that you actually understand them as well. So, and then of course that is another way of listening to your customer as well, because you can actually see the information in front of you and just maybe double check again about things so that you both understand what your expectations are and what their expectations are.
I love that. As someone who gets very shy talking to new people, I love this tip of just being, you know, like a really easy way to be as prepared ahead of time as possible and kind of get all the background knowledge, but also making yourself look really good and actually, you know, putting together a really good pitch, like a whole 2 birds with 1 stone thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Andrea, kind of on that aspect of, you know, being social, and if that's a soft skill you need, or improving that, or any of the other soft skills you think are really important in kicking off this kind of journey.
Yeah, so I think it is important to be social, but I don't think you necessarily have to be extroverted. So I do want to kind of like separate those two, because I'm a very introverted person. Like, going to parties is exhausting. I don't know if anybody else watching this relates to that fact, but yes, me too. Being around a lot of people is an energy suck for me. So I actually found social media in the early days to be fun because I could choose to participate or even just be in an observation role without necessarily having to, you know, start conversations. And so I think the interesting thing about social media, and even if you're looking at doing this for your client, is instead of thinking about starting conversations, it's coming at it from the viewpoint of joining conversations that are already happening. And so for me, that makes it a lot easier to contribute in that way. And then also I find it a lot easier to do for clients than for myself. So I can like put on my social hat for clients. But sometimes when it comes to my own social media accounts, I'm not as social as I would be for my clients, just because I do have that introverted quality.
Yeah, totally. I loved what you said about remembering that your time is just as valuable, and that just because someone is a potential client, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should spin your wheels. And this is kind of something else that I wanted to discuss with you guys is whether you have an ideal client profile that you look like and that you look for and what would be your magical perfect client. But then also, if there's something that you recommend that people create and stick to, or if in the beginning it's more, or back in your beginning, it was more like take what you can get, and where that line between the two is.
Will I go first again? I was going to say, listen, you have to say to yourself, okay, who is my ideal customer? If you're starting out, you probably don't know that yet. So it's nearly thinking to yourself, okay, I need to build up some experience in dealing with different types of people. So maybe going and offering your services to begin with maybe a charity, or working with a local business who maybe is a friend of yours, something that you can get in sort of insight into the type of person and type of business that they run. And then, you can start to see what maybe their challenges are, and see if they're if it's a good fit for you, because it's not just the business, it's the personality as well. Are you happy working with a very outgoing person, or are you happier working with a more introverted person? Because you need to have the ability to communicate with a person, and if they're a challenge to communicate with, it's not your ideal, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm wondering, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, totally.
Just for a second.
Yeah, it broke up for just a second, but I think it was at the very end. No, that totally makes sense to me. I'd love to hear from Andrea on the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, to bounce off of that concept of working with people who you you mesh with, I think is very important. But some of that does come from working with a variety of people. I'm a huge fan of not niching down. But I think that's just because of my own background. So when I first started, I worked with anyone from a lawyer to a hotel to an author to an e-commerce brand. And it gave me a lot of experience in working with a variety of different types of businesses. But I would say the running thread would be, it was the people that I worked with that made that working relationship work for me. So it's the type of business owner or the type of whoever my direct contact was at the company, we kind of meshed together with our personalities. That's why it worked. That being said, I did go after a lot of jobs that I knew things about, or that I felt like I could bring something to the table. So since I have a hospitality background, a lot of my earlier jobs were working with folks in the hospitality industry. But I did have that lawyer right off the bat approach me and say, can I work with you? And I was like, I don't know anything about criminal defense law. I don't know if I can help you. And they were like, that's what we need. We need someone who can take this lawyer speak jargon and turn it into social media content that relates to the normal, average, everyday person. And so I was still able to bring something to that relationship without having to know a lot about criminal defense law. And now I do know more than I probably ever should know about that. But it's part of that, as social media managers, I think we do have to have a natural curiosity for not only learning the platforms, but for understanding our clients as well.
So, on that note, if someone that's listening here runs into a situation like that, where they are they're in talks with someone that could maybe be a good connection, a potential client, and the client either works in a space that they know nothing about, or asks for something that a certain skill set or responsibility in the scope of work that the person isn't sure that they're an expert at, how would you recommend they handle that situation? Kind of more of a say yes and learn it later, or does it depend? I'll pass that one on to Andrea to continue with potentially your criminal law experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I think honesty is important when it comes to like these client relationships. And so I always tell them, like, I don't know anything about this. In fact, one of my newer clients teaches people how to trade stocks, like the stock market. I was like, I don't know anything about the stock market. But she really liked my like past history and who I've worked with. And her whole thing is she teaches people how to do it in a way that makes sense for the everyday person. So again, I'm that filter that's like, if she's saying something that the average everyday person would understand, let's translate that into words that we understand. And so that can be very helpful with the client. But there have absolutely been times where someone gets on a call with me and they're like, we'd like to hire you. And I go, I don't know anything about this. I'd like to give it a shot. And they go, never mind. So I think that that's like being okay with that scenario and that situation is part of it as well, because you do want it to be a mutual relationship. And oftentimes when it comes to the work that we do, it's hard to be an expert because it changes so rapidly. So even showing up and saying, I'm an Instagram expert, if a client asks you about Instagram Reels, I don't know if you could say that you're an expert. It literally just happened like last week. So I think just being open and honest with your clients about where you are in that process can be very helpful. And most clients, most normal people would appreciate that sort of communication as long as you continue to communicate.
Yeah, totally.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree, because nobody knows everything. And anybody who says they know everything about a particular platform, they don't. Because, as you said, Andrea, it actually has changed again, and Reels has just been put out there. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't used Reels yet. I was actually playing with it today. So I'm no Instagram expert, and I don't think I'll ever be, because, as I say, it's changing and changing. But I think being able to turn around and say, yeah, I can do that. I would advise people to go get a bit of knowledge and then say yes. Don't just say yes to something you don't know anything about, because that's where you will fall down. So just say, I do have a bit of knowledge, but I'm just going to update on a few things and ensure I am ready to go for you, that way. And people appreciate that, because it looks like you're actually doing even more research and you're interested in what their needs are, So, I'm like yourself, Andrea. I actually have a podcast and have a radio show here. And we're always trying to talk to the customer and say to them, it's, keeping it simple. Our show is called Let's Get Social. And we talk about social media lightheartedly and easygoing. And we even have social media jokes to try and get across that social media is not that scary. And we're both still learning. As I said again, every day is a school day. And, just show that you aren't, so up on, if you give the impression that you know everything, you might alienate your prospects as well, because you might look like you're too much of an expert, So, walk before you run in that regard, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about hard skills that you should have before you make sure you're ready to start taking on clients. And we'll talk about these school days a little bit. And I'd just be really curious to know where you guys recommend getting this information and this education, or if there's things that you recommend and kind of your regular routine that will help you stay up to date on these things you need to know before you get in front of a pitch for clients.
Well, I would say, you need to have some sort of self-development time. You can't just be managing everyone else's social media platforms and your own without having some sort of block of time during the week to go and upskill or, do a course, you know, you might do an online course or whatever. If you're trying to work and earn, you know, some money, as I say, as you go along, especially when you're starting out, you know, you might still be in college and you're trying to break into the working on as a social media manager. My advice is, you know, have basically a little bit of development time so that you can learn more about certain tools, maybe a social media management platform, maybe some sort of, you know, equipment, you know, that if you want to do some video work, video editing, all that kind of thing, you know. What do you think, Andrea? Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that time can be used in so many different ways, but one of my favorite things to suggest for those looking to start on this social media journey is to use the tools that are in the platforms. Facebook specifically has the Facebook Blueprint program that's free that anyone can take, and it can be a really great starting place for those of you looking for the technical side of managing a Facebook page, even managing Facebook ads and things like that. So taking a look at some of the free resources available out there is typically a great way to start. And then start following some of the publications and even some of the other entrepreneurs in the space who you admire, who you'd like to stay up to date with. So, you know, Social Media Examiner, for instance, is a great place to kind of get what's new and what's current and what's working on in social media in the world. Things like the content marketing platform, or there's a lot of kind of like publications out there that can help you navigate what's current. Kind of like the basics, typically if you can take whatever tutorial is included with that platform, is usually a good place to start. Or you could just get a degree on youtube.com. So when TikTok first came out, for instance, I was embarrassed because I logged onto the platform and I was like, I feel like I'm getting attacked. I don't know what's happening. Things are playing. I haven't touched anything yet. So like exited out, and I went to YouTube and I figured out like how to navigate, how to edit clips together and things like that. So, you know, kind of using the resources that are available to you is a really good place to start.
I love that. Yeah, everybody loves a good free resource, and I think there's a surprising amount of them, especially in our kind of realm here in social media. Everyone's producing really great stuff. So I'm going to put you guys a little bit on the spot for a really concrete one, and I would love to hear from both of you the top couple. I won't give you a specific number, maybe like we'll say 2 or 3 hard skills or social media management skills that you non-negotiable have to have before you say that you can offer social media management professionally.
Ooh, that is a big question. Hard skills, I would say, is like, you know, being prepared to get to know a platform really well. You know, there's no point in saying you can do them all, like as Andrea was saying, TikTok, and now Reels is like, you know, that way on Instagram. I think it's important that you say to yourself, right, what is the most important skill to have when it comes to that? And I think it's time management, you know, being able to sort of get yourself structured for your week ahead, having a good planner, and you know, keeping to that. Because we all, I don't know about you, but you know, all those lovely shiny things are great distractions, and you know, if you're not focused on providing a really good service, you know, you're really not going to do very well. So I think as a skill, it is hard to keep focus, but I don't know, Andrea, what do you think? You know, it's really difficult to sort of, you know, put it down on the one thing, you know.
Oh yeah, I like the time management example because it's so easy to get lost in scrolling on Instagram. And so like giving yourself those boundaries are great. But the two I would say for me would be to be analytical. So that's a tough one to kind of develop. So if you already have the ability to look at information, process it, and then like be able to regurgitate it back out in a way that makes sense, I think that's a very strong skill that's underrated in the social media world because there are a lot of inputs, a lot of data, a lot of information, and typically with our clients, we have to be able to do that on a consistent basis. And then the second skill I would say is copywriting. So when you're going to write captions or even simple things like communicating with clients, I think having a strong writing skill is important for this work. And then if I were to say a third one, I would say graphic design, but honestly, there's a lot of support out there for graphic design now with tools like Canva and things like that.
Yeah, Canva.
So you can get away with a lot without having a strong graphic design skill. But copywriting is that's a tough one to bring on a client and not have that as a skill.
Well, I mean, also it comes down to like your grammar and your spelling and punctuation and all that kind of thing comes into play. So being a devil in the detail, and as you say, your copywriting skills are good, but structuring and planning ahead is another, I think, is a difficult thing. If you're not focused, you need to be focused to make sure that your strategy for the week will come into play and put all those other facets into it, you know, that way. So it's you can't really put it down to the one thing, really, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
These were such fantastic answers. I think, you know, planning ahead is so huge because you literally never know what you're going to wake up to on the timeline that you're going to be very happy that you scheduled out all your other posts ahead of time when something comes up that you need to manage. And, you know, I have a really hard time seeing a client that wants to work with someone that isn't going to provide them good reporting and you put things out there that's actually, you know, engaging, grammatically correct language and stuff like that. So I think you guys totally hit the nail on the head. I love those answers. I'm curious to know if there's anybody here that's listening is kind of like, oh, these really important things that that you guys are talking about, I don't know if I, you know, could handle something like that. Like maybe don't know much about reporting or don't have really graphic design skills. Would you recommend that they you know, don't include those sort of things, or do you ever see people you know, take those on and then outsource them kind of in a secondary tier, if that makes sense, and kind of, you know, like have freelancers that help them with things, or is that something that they should just upfront say, like, I'm not going to include this service?
You could say you collaborate with experts. When they work with you, they are open to your trusted circle, who you would only work with, you know. If that is where you have maybe a lack of experience in until you build that experience, because nobody can know everything, and it's there is, as I say, we both said it's very, you know, it's ever changing, and really I'd rather be slightly honest in that regard, because it means that you are showing your customer that you want to make sure they get the best service through you and ensure that they look really good online, you know. Would you agree, Andrea?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a place for all of these, and there's different stages of business owners as well. So when I first started, I was working with newer business owners who were like, I'm okay with paying a little bit less. If you don't know everything, we could figure it out together. And so I think it's going after some of those business owners who are at the same stage as you, or, you know, someone who is willing to kind of help you learn. I was just on a coaching call with my mentees today in my program where I'm teaching social media managers, and that was one of the things that came up. was she had this client. She was like, man, I don't think it's working out because, you know, I said I could do this thing that I'm not doing. And I was like, you're getting paid to learn right now. You're getting paid to figure this out. So spend the extra time and figure it out. Because if you approach those client relationships as like, what can I learn? What can I learn from this opportunity? I think that could be very helpful, but definitely being upfront with the client is a must if you don't know those skills. And yeah, partnering with other people as well. I didn't do Facebook ads for a long, long time for most of my business. And I would just have 2 or 3 businesses I partner with that I tell my clients, we can bring them in on this project, but I don't personally do Facebook ads. So, you know, there is opportunity there to bring other people in, and then you may find the perfect match of someone who's like, I just want to design graphics, and you write the copy, and then you can like make a little team.
Yeah. I have to imagine a client would also just really appreciate all the time that would save them if you're able to come to them and say, I already know this person, I already know this other small business that I can connect you with. And, you know, to kind of have that credibility, and if they trust you, they can trust this business. They don't have to go through weeks of vetting people on calls and things like that. So I think that could be a huge, you know, a plus more than it takes away from you not having those skills at all, is to kind of be the facilitator bringing people in. I think that's great advice. Do you guys have specific sources? I know, and you guys both have your own kind of training and podcasts and things like that that you can mention as well. But where, you know, specific places that people can go to learn more of these skills and more updates on what's going on in the different social media networks. Like, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, as Andrea said earlier, Facebook have their own courses with the blueprints angle, and then there are other courses as you can look at, like Udemy. Udemy's kind of handy, I think, because they usually have a lot of offers on, and you can, you know, especially if you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money and you want to get something that's maybe up to date or even getting updated, you can purchase the course, and then you can, you know, go back in and see it again and again and again. So it's nearly like your own little bank of information. And I think also is like learn as you go, because you're going to make mistakes anyway. So why not practice? Practice makes perfect, you know? And that's the way it goes. We're all going to make mistakes, or we should call them lessons or learned, and making that you do well to win, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. Social media changes so quickly that courses quickly become outdated. Even in my own programs, we just redid the whole Facebook course because it looks different now. So, you know, courses and programs can become quickly outdated. So part of being a social media manager and being in that role is discovering it for yourself and playing around with it. I mean, it will take some time to figure out, but sometimes you just have to do it. I mean, even I was looking at Instagram stories, like where the buttons are is different now that Reels came out. So it's even little things like that you just have to do it to figure it out. Because by the time you take a whole course and look at it, I mean, my Instagram story course is outdated now. I gotta go update it. But it's things like that that's like, it's hard to keep up with it. So yeah, just kind of explore, figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. You know, there's a job description out there somewhere who wants someone to have 3 years of Reels experience or something. The way it always goes.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited at the number of questions we have coming in. So I'm gonna ask one last one kind of fun question of you guys, and then we'll kick off and I'll start going through all the ones that our attendees here are pushing through. So let's talk about myths and misconceptions about being a social media manager. So I would love to know things that you thought the job was going to be, or kind of a picture you had in your head before you started doing it. If there was something there that just ended up not being correct. But I'd also love to know if you guys just hear things all the time about what people think it really is to do this job that are kind of off base. I'll kick this one off to you, Andrea.
Okay. So I think I'll use a personal example here. Oftentimes when we get really cool clients, we think that managing their communities will be a lot of fun. But what you quickly realize is you're just answering the same questions over and over and over again. And it's like nobody looks at the website, nobody even reads the post, they're just DMing you like, how do I find this thing? And so for me, that was one thing that was like a little bit of a shock and a misconception I had about my own journey in there. But from an outside perspective, I think, my family thinks I'm just like playing on Instagram all day. And in a way I am, but
yeah.
It's a lot more structured than that. And it can be kind of heavy, especially with the coming up US election. Sometimes the comments and things online and the reactions online can be a lot to process. And so some of it can feel very heavy and like a lot of work. And so I think that's another misconception, is that people think that it's easier than it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also trying to keep your client happy, because they might have expectations that, what they post is going to sell out overnight, or it's going to go viral, or it's going to be, the latest and greatest, and they're going to get lots of engagement. And as I keep trying to say to them, if I thought back now, what you know now and what you thought is totally different, because it is not an easy job to, manage social media, because there are so many things that can go wrong and you don't expect them. And, you're trying to keep your client happy, your sanity, and your community for them, everybody positive, because there are you can get negative people out there. And then people don't really see the value of maybe digital customer service and making sure that, you can't be on it 24/7. It's, you can't just do it 9 to 5. You have to be able to structure your time. And that can be a bit of a misconception.
Yeah, I mean, if I had $1 for every time at a job someone was like, can we just start a hashtag? Can we do this so we can have a viral video?
Yeah.
I I think I would be pretty rich. So, I mean, do you have experiences with clients saying that type of thing to you? And do you have something you say to kind of manage their expectations, that you can't just churn out virality at request?
Yeah. So for me, that happens in the onboarding process, like not even before they become a client. We're just getting to know each other. So one of the questions I ask is, what are your expectations in the next 3 months of working together? And that typically lets me know where they are. If they say, if they have 100 followers and they say, I want 100,000 in the next 3 months, I'm like, oh, this is not going to work. Or if they say, for instance, I'm launching this course for the first time ever. I've never even talked about it before. I don't have an email list. I don't have anything, and I want to sell it out. Like, those are all red flags for me. And so I do try to reposition their expectations, but typically it's just not a good fit at that point. And just kind of tamper their expectations down. One of the analogies I like to use as well is that social media is a tool. It's a tool to build your business. Yeah. It's like giving 2 different people some plywood and some nails and some hammer and saying, build a house. The houses will look different, even though they have the same tools. So I try to approach that kind of education with my clients as well. Like, this is just one tool to grow the business. It's not indicative of a successful business or not. It can help you get there. It can make things easier, but just having this tool won't necessarily mean that you have a successful business.
Absolutely.
Well, the other way looking at it, it's not selling media, it's social media, and nothing happens overnight. You don't build a business overnight, and you can't build your social media presence overnight. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Okay, I'm going to start digging into some of our questions before our time runs out here. So the first thing I want to address is just a lot of people asking if this webinar will be available. It absolutely will. Keep an eye out for the recording, which will come sooner rather than later. And then shortly after that, there will be a whole recap blog. So, if you're looking for that one or two little nuggets that you remember, you can find it recapped instead of digging into the video. And those will be emailed out to everyone that attended. They'll also be available on the Traject Social blog. So the first question we have is, what are the main things to include in a digital marketing strategy? So I'm going to interpret this as kind of, like what are the fundamental aspects of the strategy that you should kind of know that you should offer as your bread and butter that are kind of standard. If I'm misinterpreting that question, I'll definitely add a follow-up for us, and we'll address that too. But let's talk about the bread and butter things that if you want to offer social media marketing services, like what you should have as your fundamentals.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the end of that.
Just the aspects that are fundamental parts of your marketing strategy that you should offer when you go to clients or as part of your services.
Yeah, I can jumpstart this one. I think it depends on your own strengths as well. So really playing into that, honestly, your packages can look however you want them to look. You can offer whatever services you want to offer. So there's no hard and fast shoulds, in quotes. I would say if there is something that I always include, it's reporting. You want to be able to speak to the results that you're helping your clients get and how what you bring to the table makes a difference in their business. So even if you are, hello puppy, even if you are, just doing their graphics, or even if you're just doing, community management for them or whatever the case may be, if you can still show how what you're doing incorporates into their business goals, then you're more likely to keep them longer as a client. So reporting is a must. Outside of that, my packages include things like creating graphics, writing captions, checking inboxes. We do monthly strategy sessions with clients to really make sure that we're aligned as far as like campaigns and things like that. Obviously the reporting piece as well. And then initially when they come on board, we do things like competitor research and hashtag research and all of those good things. But really your packages can look however you want them to look.
Well, I mean, you can actually say to your customer, like, we can actually craft a bespoke service for you, so they may only require certain aspects, like Andrea was saying, and that might actually be enough for them, because it depends also on their budget as well, because some clients might have a bigger budget than others. So it's trying to find the right features that will suit them and work with their budget. So as again, they might not want reporting, they might just want to have, community management, maybe a good content calendar completed and, rolled out every month. And then again, good communication. They might want somebody who just will engage on their behalf. That could be enough for them. So again, it depends on their budgets, I think, because it depends on the size of the business and where they are, if they're a startup or they're more established,
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of on that note about, things you may not provide to the client and kind of scaling that out, we have a really great question about the agency building process. And someone is asking, what are your thoughts around scaling? I've been a solo social media manager and teaching my ideal clients, but now I want to really scale the management part. Would you suggest collaborating and contracting social media management VAs?
So is that where they're going to move away from maybe train and they want to focus solely on social media management? Sorry, is that what you're saying?
I think the way I'm interpreting, again, if this is your question, you want to add a follow-up to kind of, if I take this in the wrong direction, but I'm interpreting this as that, they've been solo and want to scale and grow their agency and are asking if you recommend maybe like the first step in that, maybe before actually hiring in-house, if collaborating and contracting is a good direction to go in, or what you would recommend there.
Yeah, because I mean, as we were both saying, you can't know everything. So, and you may not specialize in certain areas. So it would be a good strategy to have somebody that is that maybe that, for example, you might want to work, they might need someone who can actually update their blogs on their websites. So you might want to have somebody who is, a website designer who's happy enough to do that if the client isn't, or it's maybe you're not comfortable with SEO. And ensuring that the blog post, is out there and it's, looking as well and easy to find on Google, as they say. And then you might, as Andrea was saying, you may not be a graphic designer. So maybe Canva is okay, but maybe it's not really enough. So you may have to work with somebody there until maybe you refine your skills. So I think collaboration is a good thing. Wouldn't you say, Andrea?
Yeah. Absolutely. And some of my first hires were just contractors to do some of the things that I was getting caught up with that were taking me too much time. So one of the first roles that I brought on to my team was a community manager. So she would help out with managing the inboxes and the comment sections and doing some of the growth strategies for our clients. So some of that day-to-day work where you can get really bogged down with it. So that was the first role that I hired. And then the second one that I hired was a graphic designer. So I love Canva. I love it, but it's so limited sometimes with what you can do. So what I did was I hired this graphic designer to help me set up Canva templates that had custom features to it. So she would do her thing in Photoshop and then put it in Canva so I could just like change out the text or, add a different stock photo. And then I'd have her do some custom things as well as needed. And so that really can help expand your team quickly if you want to just kind of up level things a little bit and start hiring some of those contractors to support what you're doing.
Absolutely. I've got a couple, I'm going to combine two of these because they kind of speak to a little bit of the same thing, and just kind of proving the value of social media. So we've got someone saying, do you feel that it's hard to get people to commit to a sale lately, and that, recently there's a little bit less interest and action on social media? And then there's some people saying that, I'm so sorry, guys. This is the age of 2020 when we're not in offices and we all have to be home hosting webinars with our dogs. And then, some people asking how do you get people in an organization to always consider or consider at all adding social media as part of their plan?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think the dog kind of was trying to get his moment there. I would say, you need to not just rely on the online, but also the offline. And, being on the right channels is key. So you have to talk to your client and find out from them what is, who's their ideal client and what channel are they likely to be on, If they're the 15 to 25-year-old, they're probably on TikTok, or maybe a little bit of Instagram. They're not going to be on Facebook. My kids always say, "Oh, don't you post anything on Instagram of us?" And I go, well, I've just put it on Facebook. Oh, there's nobody on there. That's fine, you know. So they're not interested. You're, you know. So making sure that your client understands that with social media, it is important, because a website is a one-way street, where social media is a two-way street. I say it's like your website is like your shop window, and you know, all picture no sound, and the social media is the channels that are very noisy, and they bring the party to the door, if that makes sense. So hopefully that will kind of get them thinking that social media is an important aspect to getting seen online, and getting people to come to their website, and even through, maybe if it was a bricks and mortar business, through their front door, you know?
Yeah. So I would say too, I kind of interpreted the question a little bit differently based on current events. Like with everything that's happening in the world with the pandemic, we are seeing that engagement for some people is decreasing on social. But I mean, it is an unprecedented occasion that this is happening. And so just over communicating to your clients about that, and also incorporating other metrics. So engagement isn't the only metric. Look at things like profile views, look at impressions, look at website traffic. There's so many different things that you can point to with your metrics to prove that, hey, people are seeing this and they're clicking on it. They may not be commenting and liking, but there is some action and activity happening that could really help kind of illustrate to your clients the value that you're bringing to social media, outside of just looking at things like comments and likes.
Yeah, but then again, there's a lot more online shopping as well. So because nobody wants to go out shopping, so in some ways, you know, there is maybe a different way of looking at when it comes to, you know, you know, the interaction. As you say, they might be just viewing, they may not be clicking through, you know. So but as I say, look, you know, everybody likes to be edutained on social media, and maybe sometimes they just want to be cheered up, you know, and look through something but then click through, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we probably have, this will be our last one. We're coming right up on the end. We have someone asking how you know what sort of pricing structure to assign when you're working with clients. And then kind of a follow-up I want to include in that as another question on what to do when someone doesn't want to pay you what you're worth. I love here they included, this really speaks to Andrea's point earlier, some clients who believe a kid can do it, and you know, you're just sitting around tweeting all day. How do you kind of dispel that?
So the pricing question is a tough one, because it really depends on you and where you are and your skill set. But as you do it more, you should be raising your prices. The price that you should charge is whatever someone will pay. I know that kind of sounds backwards, but it really is the reality of it sometimes. The caveat to that being that you do want to show your value. So typically I'm only talking to people who already understand the value in social media. So my first kind of projects were going on places like Upwork, where people are saying, I know I need this and I know it's valuable and I want to pay someone to do it. Instead of talking to a friend of a friend of a friend who's like, can I pay you $5 to do this thing? It's like, that doesn't even make any sense. So it really is going after the customers and clients who already understand the value that's really helped me. And then setting my prices, you know, after a while, time yourself, see how long it takes, give yourself an hourly rate. Does that make sense for where you are? Some of it is just kind of starting somewhere and learning. You have to do it first, but you can time yourself, see if it matches up with what you charge the client, and go from there.
Another way of looking at it is do your research and see what everyone else is kind of, you know, putting out there, you know, and then you get a general idea of what you should be charging. And that way you feel valued yourself, but also you feel like you're giving value to your customer, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would really love to dig into, kind of the operational background of making those decisions and creating those structures. But since we're out of time, I will say that we have a really great blog on the Traject Social website about the steps you can go through in a process to create your pricing structure, if anyone is interested in that. And our next Traject Social webinar actually will be more about these operational, it'll be very process based. So, the things that you need to have in order before you start, like your branding, your website, and then kind of, paperwork things you need, like an onboarding process and your pricing structure and things like that. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be our next one. You can look out for that as well. But we are not only out of time, but just a couple minutes over. So I just wanted to thank everybody for attending, and especially thank Andrea and Emer for joining us. Emer for extending her hours today and joining us from Ireland. And I hope everyone found this a little bit helpful, and keep an eye out for the replay video and the recap blog as well. So you can, look back on anything that was said here, share it with anybody else that might be interested or anything like that. So thank you guys all so much. Thank you, Emer and Andrea, for joining me today. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.